Robert Del Naja is a founding member of the band Massive Attack and remains at the group's core today. Using the tag 3D, he has been active as a graffiti artist since his teenage years and was once more well known for his graffiti. Many today still consider him to be a pioneer, if not the UK's first graffiti writer. Painting on Lower Park Row, he can be seen creating an image of Robert De Niro from Taxi Driver. It dates the piece and the interview to 1988, when Massive Attack themselves were being formed. Growing up in Bristol in the early 80s, a young Del Naja had attempted to get into art school, but was turned down twice. It was a big part of what led him to create work on the street. He said, "It's just natural to think, well, if they don't want me, I'll do it somewhere else then." His story echoes other graffiti writers of his generation. He and Banksy were friends back then, and Banksy himself has credited Robert for introducing him to graffiti and spray cans and stenciling, which were big parts of his artistic practice. Without 3D, there would be no Banksy. Bristol is now known as one of the homes of graffiti in the UK, but in those early days, around 1983, what would become graffiti was really only just getting started. It was a time where Bristol was also becoming known for its sound system scene. Music and art started to form separate parts of an exciting movement unique to the city. It was that blend of art and music that would provide the sweet spot. In 1984, a sound system group called the Wild Bunch was formed. 3D joined and worked on their artwork, helping to give the collective a distinct look. He soon evolved and became known as a lyricist and a freestyle rapper. The Wild Bunch would start to be known across the city, and other sound system collectives would form. It was a moment in time that helped to bring together a distinctive Bristol sound. Fast forward to 1988, and the Wild Bunch evolved into Massive Attack. Where Massive Attack are now is a far cry from those early days in Bristol, becoming one of the most important bands to come out of the UK in the 90s. Robert Del Naja has been involved in the artwork for all of Massive Attack's albums. He designed the album cover for Blue Lines, their seminal debut album, creating a distinctive sound that became the blueprint for what would ultimately become known as trip-hop. He also created the album artwork himself for their follow-up, Protection. During the making of their third album, Mezzanine, Del Naja had become oddly fascinated with spiders. He would recall dreaming vividly of arachnids and insects and became intrigued by their form and the patterns on the spiders' backs. As a result of this infatuation with bugs, the gatefold album sleeve was designed using an enlarged photograph of a stag beetle. For the artwork for Massive Attack's fourth album, 100th Window, they worked with Nick Knight and Tom Hingston, creating 10 figures, each 5 foot tall, which were then exploded. The figures were made by a glassblower from Brixton, and this was his last job before he retired. It was an ambitious and elaborate sleeve, and not something that record companies would be able to afford to do nowadays. For Massive Attack's fifth and final studio album, Heligoland, Del Naja got back to designing the artwork himself, based on his paintings. Tom Hingston then used photomontage, collage, and other techniques to create the final image. Del Naja said, "I painted 30 or 40 pieces for Heligoland. Some were sketches, and some I deliberately left unfinished. They eventually became a collection that worked as a bigger idea, like a series of songs for an album." He has also created album covers for Uncle and Martina Topley Bird. And in 2013, at the Lazaridis Gallery in London, there was a retrospective showcase of the artist and the musician's most definitive work. This was followed up by a book that was published in 2015 called 3D and the Art of Massive Attack, which documents the visual history of the Bristol band.